How you guys all doing? My name is Dave Arganette, and I want to talk to you guys. I want to really speak to you guys, the people. I want to tell you really why you don't have a job. If you're like me, you grew up, and most of your life you were told, go to school. I mean, it's just the right thing to do. Get a degree and graduate. So you decide to do that. And I don't know how much support you had mentally, but let's just say you got through it and you graduated. No job. If you're like me, you were smart and you decided, well, I'm going to study finance, or accounting, or business, or political relations, or marketing. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to go into advertising. I mean, I can't go wrong there. Again, no job. Just so you guys get a little bit of background, I started my own business living in my van, in a parking lot at Walmart. 115 degrees in Arizona. And in 3 years, I had 2 girls working for me. I was making $150 a day to pay my girls and $3,000 a day in revenues. I can build analytical and regression models, CFA high-level reports, anything else that you might see required by jobs at Wall Street. I have a degree in finance and entrepreneurship, a minor in economics, and in my lifetime, and this includes mowing lawns when I was a kid, I built roughly about 9 businesses. I have personally raised $130,000 talking to 2 complete strangers. I'm going to tell you 3 excuses you're going to hear why you cannot find a job. First excuse is, well, people that graduate, they study the wrong things. They study things like basket weaving and water rafting and art. And those jobs, they don't require degrees. The second excuse you're going to hear is, today the economy is just so bad. You've got people with master's degrees, of all things, competing for flipping burgers with kids that haven't even graduated with their GEDs or high school. It's just a bad economy. The third excuse you're going to hear, and I got to be honest with you, this one is a little bit more innovative. I would honestly say probably the most creative one out of all of them is that it's the government's fault. You don't have a job because minimum wage stops employers from hiring you. But if there was no minimum wage, well, then they would be able to afford to pay you. I'm going to tell you a little story. It was 2007, 2008, closer to the end of 2007. The economy was just starting to show signs. You didn't see it in the stock market, but you definitely saw it if you were a small business owner. And I was doing my normal routines during summer, and there was an old man in front of me, and he wanted to purchase a pair of my sunglasses. He loved them. His daughter loved them. And I remember he opened up his wallet. And when he opened up his wallet, there was $3. And I remember looking at him and thinking, that's it? That's all you have is $3? And you want to buy a pair of my sunglasses? And then it dawned on me. College is a business, just like mine. Except the difference is, they teach you how to draw little triangles in the sand. What's beautiful about that is, they can always correct you and tell you which angle needs to be drawn again. Forever erasing the sand. And then they charge you interest because they make it so expensive for you to learn how to draw those triangles in the sand that you can't afford unless you borrow the money. How much money do students actually borrow? Well, according to the most recent survey, this was in 2013, student loan debt passed credit cards. Credit card debt was roughly a little bit over $1 trillion. Student loans now are $1.3 trillion. Let me repeat that. $1.3 trillion. That's bigger than oil, my friends. That's bigger than oil! But how big is this business for real? Because guess what? That's just scratching the surface. That's just for the people that can't afford to go to school. Truth is, what they have not told you is legally, when you default on your loans, they have the right to send you to a collections agency that they own. And then collect 75% of the principal plus interest. So that tiny, 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 tiny difference is quickly made up back to the original value of the loan plus interest. So when Joe, Sally, or Dimitri defaults on their student loan, they go to the government with hands and they say, Mr. Government, Sally, Joe, or Dimitri, very bad person. They promised to pay back their loan that you've guaranteed, Mr. Government, by the taxpayers of the United States of America. So we'd like our money, please. And then the government says, okay, and they cut them a check. So if you owe them $60,000, the government writes a check, $60,000. Here you go. Then they have the right to send you to a collections agency, which they own. They don't tell you that. And collect 75% of the principal plus interest. That $1.3 trillion just now turned into $4 trillion. And that nice 5%, 3%, 7%, depending if you consolidated your loans, just turned into 15 or 18%. I have a calculator. This is a financial calculator. Typical calculator you're going to get if you study corporate finance or any other type of finance. High level, 600 level classes, graduate level finance classes will require this. Let's just say you had $1,000. You owed $1,000. Right? And it's an annual interest rate, 5%. 30 years, 52 times, well, that's 30 years. Right? Let me explain. We plug in $1,000 in your present value, 0 payment, interest rate at 5%, 30 years because it's annual. That $1,000 has grown to $4,321. 5% in 30 years. But let's say you had to pay 18%. How much more do you think it grows? I want you to think about that. That $1,000, my friends, goes to $143,000. What's really going on? Why you really don't have a job is because if you look at Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, I really encourage everybody to read this book. Rents, Wages, and Labor. Talks about how landowners only paid their indentured servants just enough to stay on the farms, but not enough to leave the farms. Just enough so that they could pay and eat and live with their families on the farms, but not enough to leave the farms. And you look at the average cost of living in New York State, let's say, New York, it's roughly $40,000 a year. The average salary in the United States of America is roughly $38,000. In New York State, it's about $46,000 if you're in the city. And it's about $4,500 less if you're a woman. Oh, look at that. Cost of living is higher than what you would get if you worked. And this is if you got a full-time job, by the way. Now, think about that just for a second and understand you're only getting paid enough money, especially after taxes, to stay on the farm, but not enough to leave. But if we took that a step further and looked at regulation, unemployment laws, labor regulations, employers don't even want to work you full time because then they have to pay you benefits. So instead, you get part-time work. If you're a woman, you'll be a secretary making $15 an hour at 25 hours a week. Well, that comes out to about minimum wage full-time. And if you're a man, you get $10 an hour working part-time, 2 jobs. Statistically speaking, which also comes out to $18,000 a year. Either way. $18,000 a year doesn't even afford you the clothes on your back. You're literally a slave. Paying to your masters. Except this time, see, in the olden days, that used to be called a mortgage. Except you got a house. $200,000 mortgage. In 30 years, you'd pay about $550,000. And that's if you made your payments on time, mind you. And maybe threw in a little bit extra, just so you could maybe get them paid off a little bit sooner. Now, you don't even get a house. You get a piece of paper that I can go down to Staples, one of my favorite stores, by the way, for small business owners, and print out the exact same piece of paper on a computer, get a gold embroidered for the symbol of whatever university I want to claim, and I've got a degree. And I'm going to tell you right now, that $40,000 or $60,000 will grow exponentially. Keep in mind what we said. 5% grew to roughly $4,500, but 18% grew to $143,000. And here's my prediction, my friends. One of the things I love to do is go into 10K reports and investor relations, go to company websites and look at their debt to equity ratios. And you'll find that most companies right now are taking on extraordinary amounts of debt while having large cash reserves, and you're seeing a very strong cycle where companies are preparing because they're scared. They won't tell you that. What are they scared of? Well, I'll tell you what they're scared of. They're scared that that $1.3 trillion business is going to guarantee, because there's a vested interest, my friends. You see, there's a vested interest in making sure that you default on your loans. And here's an interesting statistic. Within the first 2 years, 75% of all student loans are defaulted. Students default within the first 2 years. And that's not a coincidence, my friends. And so you have the generation baby boomers, the generation X, and the generation Y. And I guarantee you that the majority of students, if you're familiar with statistics, you know that there's a bell curve. When the majority of the generation Y has passed over that bell curve and gone through the college system and defaulted on their student loans, that's when the economy will bounce back. And ironically, that time frame is between 2018 and 2025, when the majority of Generation Y will pass that bell curve. And ironically, if you look at economic reports, you will find out that, wow, lo and behold, that's when they predict that the economy will be very strong and jobs will be back in full force. The truth is, it doesn't matter if you have a master's degree, if you have an undergraduate degree. It doesn't matter if you've studied the best social sciences, finance classes, political relations, or marketing classes. Because it's in their vested interest to make sure you default. Because they have a guaranteed check as soon as you do by the government, and then they legally have the right to send you to a collections agency, which they own, and collect 75% of the principal plus interest. And that interest payment is no longer 5%, because now you're a bad person because you didn't pay your bills that you promised you'd pay. It's 18%. And what's more, you're illiterate. Let me explain. Back in the olden days, there used to be kings. And kings would have scribes. You couldn't be a scribe unless you understood how to speak, read, and write the native language. But if you could, well, then you could get a job working 12-hour days for the king or the merchants to the king as a scribe. And you get paid 10 coins. And if you were smart and diligent, you saved 3 to 4 coins a year, in 10 years, you would have enough money to become a merchant for the king. Well, the modern day form of the scribe is computer tech. Except they don't even pay you 10 coins. You get paid 8 coins, or $80,000. Now, you take into account the devaluation of the dollar, globalization of trade, and the overvaluation of commodities across the board, you'll find out that you actually get paid a lot less than those 8 coins. But just for the sake of argument, let's just say you do get those 8 coins. And let's say you're very diligent. You live really below your means, and you save 4 to 5 coins every year. Well, within 10 years, guess what? You'll have $500,000. And that is definitely enough to start your own business. I personally, starting 9 businesses myself, would tell you that whatever you need, double it and add half. So if you think you need $100,000, you really need about $300,000. And I really encourage you to start a business that costs nothing, because you're probably going to fail the first time. And so you want to fail as cheap as possible while saving your capital at the same time. So that when you do finally get that chance, you can take the majority of your coin and go start a business and become free. And that, my friends, is the real definition of liberty. It's the ability to buy your freedom. Well, paper was made with wood, tiny wood particles, all broken up with tiny bits of glue and some other chemicals, and then bleached white. And then you take ink and write over the top. Well, what do you think a computer chip is? Silicon. It's just sand. That's it. It's just sand. Embedded and encoded with memory. When you're typing on your iPhone or your PC or your laptop or your brand new tablet, realize that all you're doing is typing on the modern day form of paper. And what you're actually looking at is a language that you do not understand. And you are illiterate, my friends. And so your degree in finance, accounting, political relations, or marketing is worthless. Because a degree only teaches you a skill set. But if you are illiterate, you have no way to market that skill set. And therefore, you do not get the derived value that your degree actually holds. And so as a result, you get the wages of a slave or an indentured servant. Only enough to put clothes on your back and barely enough to put food in your tummy. That's it. That's it. So, the real reason why you do not have a job is because it was designed so that you would be an indentured servant that pays your debts to your master while being conditioned to be illiterate. It's the oldest story in the book. If you were a slave, it was because you couldn't read, write, and speak. And the slaves always served the masters who could read, write, and speak. So, when you graduate from college, or if you've already graduated from college, and you want to start a business, write a business plan, share this video with someone and learn the truth, share the truth, because if enough people wake up and see what it is that's actually happening, there's no way they can get away with what they're doing. This is your truth. Share it with everybody you know. Wake up. God bless you.